Activate Your Introvert, the weekly show to help leaders build performance by understanding introversion. In this week's show, Boris or Kia? Is it an introvert or extrovert thing? A discussion with the introvert recruiter, Carey Curry. Recruitment is interesting for two reasons. Number one, the extrovert bias where many employers look for the wrong people. And number two, because many recruitment agencies are seen as pushy, salesy and extroverted. How can you attract and bring out the best in your introverted candidates? Question of the week. How can I make my interviewing more introvert friendly? Thanks, Simon. And bottle-fed babies are more likely to develop a fetish for rubber gimp suits, apparently. But first, introversial news items in the week. Let's be honest, Boris is often in the news, as is Keir Starmer. A couple of news articles lately almost echoed the introvert bad, extrovert good debate. Starmer is quiet, indecisive, and works behind the scenes, supposedly, while Boris is bold, fun, and decisive. Now, I'm not claiming that Starmer is an introvert, just the basic feel of the articles. Is there a reason why an introvert couldn't be a good Prime Minister? Or is this just another piece of extrovert bias? The basic concept behind this show is change, changing how you understand and manage introversion to improve productivity. We've had a couple of change management specialists on the show, and I'd love to interview more, so do get in touch. But change made me think of a quote by Arnold Glasgow I saw in Forbes recently. Consider how hard it is to change yourself, and you'll understand what little chance you have of changing others. Being woke continues to exorcise the press. 36% of UK adults think the term woke is an insult. 26% see it as a compliment. The proportion who have never heard of being woke has halved from 32% in 2020 to 16% now, according to Ipsos UK in the Daily Mail. I remember a great discussion with Jo Lockwood a few months ago on this show. Essentially, she said, if woke means being awake to the plight of more people's problems, many of which we can help with small changes in attitude, who wouldn't want to be woke? Which I'll interpret as the importance of understanding how to engage the third of your team who are introverted, so you increase the productivity in your firm. I add the phrase productivity on there, and maybe it sounds less woke. I was surprised to see ex-UK Prime Minister John Major in the news lately. Apparently, having spent only 3 months as Foreign Secretary before becoming Prime Minister, Major felt deficient in diplomatic know-how. He was thrown when, at his first meeting with Jacques Delors, the European Commission President, Delors kept referring to Douglas. What was Douglas? Now, misunderstandings happen so easily. Fixing them is one of our roles as leaders. Think about any incident you've ever had to deal with. I'll bet it was based on a misunderstanding. What misunderstanding could you fix this week? Major eventually realised that Delors was referring to his Foreign Secretary, Douglas Hurd, Douglas. And finally, bottle-fed babies are more likely to develop a fetish for gimp rubber suits. Yes, this was a true headline in the Metro. I find this kind of headline nonsensical and annoying, like all the articles I see in Google claiming to tell you if you're introverted or extroverted based on things like your favourite colour, favourite food, or recently, it was the Daily Star, how you see an optical illusion. I've interviewed over 600 people about introversion, many on this show, and I promise you that such gimmicks don't help you understand who is introverted and who is not. But speaking of interviews, it's time to get off my soapbox and chat to Carey about recruitment. Welcome, Carey.
Thank you, John. I appreciate you having me.
Just before we start talking about recruitment and how to get the best out of candidates, because I think that's for me, that's the really important thing in recruitment.
is how to get the best from candidates. But before we go there, are you an introvert, an extrovert, and probably more importantly, what impact has that had on you?
I would say I'm an introvert that masks as an extrovert. What that means is in my private life, I'm very introverted, but I've had to learn to act extroverted to advance throughout my career and to try to fit in with others. And one of the most difficult parts in the work world, but especially in a typically extroverted field, is that you often get mislabeled as a pessimist or that you're not social enough, you don't participate in team meetings, or you don't like doing team activities. And I think that's unfortunate because I feel as though I can't be the only one who's faced those types of stereotypes.
Kerry, I've interviewed over 450 people specifically around the area of productivity at work and fitting in at work. And I can assure you, you're not the only one. You're far from the only one. What was quite interesting in that, though, you said you've learned to be extroverted and fit in with others in an extroverted field. But how does that leave you feeling?
Exhausted. I love meeting new people. I love helping people, but it's exhausted every day because you feel like you're constantly fighting against the wind. And almost every day on a regular basis, you're having to state your case, why you do things the way you do them, despite them being so different from what a lot of people would just consider the norm.
Thank you. Let's move on to recruitment. One of the things you like to focus on is how to attract and bring out the best in introverted candidates. What led you to that?
Just basically came from my own experience as an introvert trying to apply to jobs. First thing that candidates are going to see is your job posting. There's something called gender bias language in job postings, which is oftentimes a bit more extroverted or can even seem like borderline aggressive. And interestingly, I really think it's also extroverted bias language too. I mean, when you say something like ninja or master of your craft or fast paced, we like to work hard and play hard together, you're going to completely turn off, male or female, an introvert for sure, because all of that just seems so daunting, chaotic, stressful.
So by wording the posting in a certain way, you're already excluding some of what could be your best candidates.
Absolutely.
Wow.
They're going to completely bypass. And like you said, you may have lost out on a great contributor.
Is recruitment itself changing?
Well, yes. I think the old standards are still there. The push, the cold calling, cast a wide net, see what happens. But at least what I'm seeing on LinkedIn, and I think the recruiters that will succeed the most, on LinkedIn, extroverts and introverts alike seem to be really frustrated with the old ways of doing things. The multiple interviews, the playing the game with salary negotiation. I think more and more candidates are just looking for an honest, real experience. I honestly compare it to dating. Do you want to go on a date and somebody is pretending to be somebody else? And now you're 3 weeks into it and you realize, oh man, this isn't the person that I thought you were? Or would you rather know right off the bat?
And I guess that's a bit like when somebody joins as a business owner. I've just recruited somebody, and after 3, 4, 5, 6 months, they leave. To me, that was a bad recruitment decision.
Absolutely. And I think, yes, companies should definitely take a look at their process to make sure it is inclusive of all, but also too, don't pretend to be something you're not. There are fields that are extremely fast paced and there's no other way around it. So don't pretend like you're not to try to get somebody. And now all of a sudden you've got the wrong person And it doesn't mean there was anything wrong with the candidate. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the company. It's just not a good match. And that should be okay.
So after the pandemic, there was a lot of talk about the great resignation and all this kind of stuff. Does that mean that candidates nowadays are more assertive with what they want, more interested in the values that they want, whereas in the past, I guess the candidate was just pleased to have a job?
I would say you hit the nail right on the head, because again, that's exactly who I was. It was, I just need the job. I just got to get this job. I'll suffer through. They make me feel guilty for taking a sick day. But what I really love, what I'm seeing on LinkedIn, is there do tend to be some recruiters out there that are really kind of helping to make this progress happen in making sure candidates know their rights, making sure candidates are well prepared. And that means coming to the table with what is a non-negotiable for you, and what are things that you could be flexible on and you would still be happy and fulfilled in your employment. And even to this day, I talk to both brand new college graduates going into the workforce and people who have been in the workforce for years, who are like, oh, I can ask the interviewer questions of my own. And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, that's how you find out if their values and ethics align with what you would be looking for in a company.
How should a business owner or a leader in a larger company, how should they find the right recruits?
Well, I think it's a matter of interviewing a more diverse candidate pool. I would say really look at your top picks. If you have your top 5 candidates, look at them. When you interview them, are their personalities just like your personality? Do they work the same way that you work? If so, that might mean that even unintentionally, you're biased towards people that are most like you. And in doing that, you're really doing a disservice to your company, because you're missing out on a diverse talent pool, truly, and a diverse employee workforce.
And do you think that recruiters are biased against introverts?
I think some, yeah, because a lot of recruiters come from a sales type background, and for them, we're not as exciting because, sometimes we're not as gregarious as they are, or free flowing with our emotions. You kind of have to crack that shell before you get to the real us, because we're a little more guarded, we're thinkers, and we just want the time and the respect to be able to do that. Where I think a lot of recruiters, it's about what's happening right now. I got to get that job filled, got to get that sale. And we don't work like that. So I think even if they're not purposefully a bit biased by them, I do definitely think subconsciously there is a bias there that, oh, they're too quiet. They're never going to succeed. Ugh, they could never be a leader. They're not going to go far. They'll never be liked by other people.
I've certainly had all of those biases before now. What I'd like to end on is if you could give me a quick tip for an introvert, perhaps an introverted business owner, introverted leader who is recruiting for other people. How can they do it better?
Well, I think the biggest strength that you have is building those meaningful relationships. And just as much as an extroverted hiring manager or business owner, as an introvert, find the extrovert that's going to build upon what you've already built in your company. Because absolutely, we can all work together. We all have strengths to bring to the table. I think introverts can be intimidated or just shy away from extroverts, but they could really add a lot to your company too, in ways that you might not be so comfortable doing.
So very much as an introverted recruiter, make sure you're looking at extroverts as well to get that diversity.
Absolutely.
Cool. And how about the other way around then? How about non-introverted hiring leader, whatever your phrase is for them? How can they dial down that bias against introverts?
Well, I think it's basically coming in with the mindset of respecting somebody for who they are, not trying to turn them into another version of you. And that's hard because I think that is human nature. It goes both ways, but understand that just because your introverted employee doesn't want to go out for drink or with the rest of the group, or they don't want to do a trust fall for the team building exercise, it doesn't mean that they're being belligerent or not a team player. They're not comfortable. And just respect that and say, okay, well, just know the invitation is there. You're always welcome to come. And respect that, we need time to decompress. So we might be social, we can do water cooler talk at the office, but lunchtime, we may want to eat by ourselves. And we're okay with that. We're not lonely. We need the mental break because we get our energy from being able to be by ourselves or maybe with like one other person in a quieter situation. And I think that's hard for extroverts to understand because they're energized by people. They find it exciting and invigorating. And we can in the moment, but we need a break.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think just respect that it doesn't mean that they don't like you. It doesn't mean that they're not a good hire. Just respect the fact that they work different, they rejuvenate different, but they're still a great worker. They're still a great asset.
Fabulous. Thank you, Carrie. I'm sure that some of the listeners will want to get back in touch with you. What's the best way to do that?
They can just go to my LinkedIn page, send me a direct mail.
Fabulous. Carrie, it's been lovely to talk. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. It's been brilliant.
My takeaways from the discussion were, number one, how strong the extroverted bias is in many companies and is often unconscious. Number two, changing words on your job advert can attract many more people who are different and possibly better. And number three, the importance of recruiting for introverts and extroverts. What were your takeaways? Do add to a discussion on the Facebook page, Activate Your Introvert. What would you like to know about introversion in business? This week's question comes from Simon. How can I make my interviewing more introvert friendly? It's good that Simon already recognised there's a bias in the system. Firstly, Simon, listen to the discussion I just had with Carrie. Then try the following, taken from an article in Introvert in Business. The link is on the sleeve notes. Number one, don't talk too much. Your role is to set the scene, make the candidate feel comfortable, ask questions and listen. Don't jump in to fill any silence. It makes candidates, especially introverts, think you're not interested in their answer. Neither should you spend too long talking about the company or your background. Yep, many do, and it's normally irrelevant ego. Company and role information can be sent out ahead of time. Allow introverts the time to think and answer. Number two, time. Introverts will reflect on your questions. They'll gather their thoughts before speaking. That's internal processing. This doesn't mean they're less confident or less competent. Good questions demand thinking time, so allow it to the candidates. If there's no answer, try the question again, maybe in a slightly different way. Number three, listen. Make notes, not assumptions. Pay closer attention to the candidate's answers, both verbal and non-verbal. Number four, standardise the process. Consistent and structured interviews allow all candidates an opportunity to demonstrate their capability for your role and your firm's requirements. Number five, dig deeper. Having standard questions does not mean only asking those questions. Recruiters often ask a standard question and then move on to the next topic. Ask each standard question, listen to the answer, then dig for more information where you need it to really understand your candidate. And finally, number six, Don't mistake a candidate's lack of excitement about herself or himself as a lack of enthusiasm or ability. Introverts tend to avoid bravado. If you don't get an answer gushing with how wonderful they are at whatever, dig for more details. From some people, you'll get the data you need to show how good they are at the job. From others, you'll suddenly realise their first answer was only bravado.
I'm John Baker. Thank you for listening. I hope you found it useful. There's a new episode every Thursday at activateyourintroverts.co.uk and your favourite podcast provider. Till then, go be introversial, activating your introverts, building your business.